Unless you're building a cutaway, the overall shape and surfaces of your model are by far and away the most seen and most critical elements. Consider this. At a normal viewing distance, say 18 to 24 inches, how visible is this area compared to this area? This compared to this? Or this compared to this? Certainly no one would dispute that a well-detailed model is a joy to view, but the fact is, if the basic shape is wrong or the surface is rough, crude, or out of scale, then the model loses credibility. Having good reliable methods and techniques for creating scale surfaces and surface detail will free you up to refine or correct structural and shape issues with kit models, make your own conversions, or create your own scratch-built components, and possibly even scratch-build the entire model. Indeed, when I evaluate a model kit, my basic concern is the overall shape. In essence, I view a plastic kit as a pre-carved wood model. The details are secondary. This may seem a bit extreme, but when you consider that this model was brought to the stage here as basically a solid model before any engraving of panel lines was done, you might begin to get a feel for the freedom that is available to you when you ignore the molded surface detail. So when is the shape of a model cause for concern? That's an extremely individual question. I have my own set of criteria, as you may have as well. When determining how well a kit replicates the actual subject, I usually rely on several resources. My first choice would be well-drawn, accurate plans. However, all plans are subject to errors, and I treat them as such. From personal experience, drawing a set of plans can be more tedious and critical than building a model, especially in the days of T-squares and French curves when I first studied drafting. Drawings are subject to all the same errors as a model, so plans are part of the puzzle, but beware of treating them as gospel. Photographs are also invaluable, but of most use are the photographs that I've taken myself, because I can control the perspective and lighting. When photographing a subject, I frequently use a long lens to minimize the distortion and make sure I include a number of shots as perpendicular to the subject as possible. It's also handy to have some sort of scale in the photo for a rough estimate. Combined with direct measurements, you can usually get a reasonable idea about the odds and ends so that you can establish good proportionality. Field trips are good for first-hand visualization, and they are a great source for motivation and inspiration. As I said earlier, evaluation of a kit is an individual call. I don't mind reading the opinions of a kit's accuracy found on many modeling bulletin boards and reviews, but I generally take them with a grain of salt, and I prefer to make my decisions on my own evaluations. I strongly urge you to do plenty of your own research and decide for yourself what is acceptable. There's nothing more embarrassing than changing things about and then finding out later that they were right in the first place. Sometimes it just takes a few minor modifications to get you in the ballpark. Or maybe the kit strikes you as so bad that you literally have to start from scratch. Rather than complaining on a modeling bulletin board, let's get to work building some skills that get us the models that we want. Take a good look at the kit. Is the shape looking right? If not, now's the time to make the corrections. It's impossible to come up with some sort of universal checklist, but by going over some basic straightforward construction issues related to aircraft models, the following might provide a few suggestions. Start with some of the most basic elements of alignment. From the photos of this A-26, you can see that the wings are straight, and you have a pretty good idea of the correct dihedral of the wings and elevators. Kits rarely provide a positive, proper mount for the wings and tailplane. However, before they're mounted, the wings must be properly glued up. To ensure the wing is straight, I rely on a flat surface. The jig, shown here, ensures a straight trailing edge. The trailing edge of a wing is usually very sharp, and most plastic kits have trouble in this area. A lot of modelers attempt to address this issue by removing material like this in hopes of preserving the molded detail. This method can change the outline of the wing and frequently doesn't address the profile issues. A better approach is to treat the wing as though you are dealing with a solid model and correct the airfoil from the outer surface, thus correcting all the issues. If necessary, backfill the area to be reduced before assembling the wing halves. Next, consider ways to accurately line up the major structures. I always like to work from a solid flat surface. I prefer a flat metal plate like this, however a flat piece of wood or plate glass will work. I always have a lot of small wood blocks of various dimensions handy. For this example, I'm using the Academy P38, but the kit was also reissued by Eduard. P38s are notoriously hard to align, and this kit adds in its own twist with issues of warpage. The front section of the boom was glued up first. Taking advantage of the perfectly vertical seam, a piece of 10,000th brass was inserted as shown. Mounted in this simple jig made from blocks and rubber bands, you can see how the vertical tail is held in perfect alignment with the vertical seam of the front surface of the nacelle. Once the booms were glued up, all major components were brought together and supported by wood blocks and tape. A square is used to confirm that the booms are vertical. The final result is a well-aligned airframe. Do the spinners of the model aircraft actually look like they belong? Sometimes it's necessary to do a little work and make sure the nose conforms to the spinner, or maybe rework the spinner. My favorite approach is to construct a precise fit between the nose of the aircraft and the spinner before refining the shape. Radial engine aircraft have their own alignment issues. Usually the pieces that make up the kit cowling and engine are sort of sloppy and don't provide the necessary supporting structure to develop a nice prototypical separation between the nacelle and the cowl. Or sometimes the engine itself doesn't align properly. Here again I like to create an internal support so I can develop a precise fit between the nacelle and the cowl as well as keep everything on center. The wing intakes on this A20 should be aligned on a vertical center from the center of the engine. The kit placed them too far inboard. Straightening out simple details like this just adds to the proper overall look. Gear alignment and the resulting stance of an aircraft model can be a make-or-break feature. I don't wait till the last minute, relying on some sloppy kit-supplied mounting and glue to try and get the proper gear position right. I like to securely mount my landing gears over brass tubing. In this case, the tubing extends up through the wing, providing a very positive alignment that I establish separately. It's especially important to check the attitude of a model aircraft with the gear in place and the tires flattened. I determine the length of the gear legs with a simple mounting before doing any modification or fabrication. Finally, I'm never afraid of using a reel file or some 100 grit sandpaper to get the basic form of the model right. The details will come later. I also rely on other materials other than styrene for additions or fabrication. Other plastic materials, such as acrylic sheet and rod stock, as well as PVC, have come in handy. I frequently use basswood. In small areas it can be sealed with several coats of cyanoacrylate cement, or in large areas with polyester resin. I never hesitate to create my own conversions or scratch-built parts. As you create more, you get a feel for how to create shapes. Although this rudder is small, it demonstrates all the same elements necessary to create a scratch-built wing. You establish your centerline by putting two pieces together. A paper copy stuck to the surface gets you your outline. Create the foil and then scribe in your lines. Obviously, I haven't even scratched the surface, but no matter what your subject, give the profile and basic shape prime consideration. Next up, I will be demonstrating various techniques for creating scribe detail.